everybody, JC here from Toy News International. And today I'm throwing together a video. I just kind of wanted to share some of my thoughts about Toy Fair this past weekend. I just got back from New York City last night, so I thought I would take this time just to kind of share what I thought were the highlights and what stood out to me the most. Now, I've got to be honest, overall, I actually kind of felt like this was kind of a weak toy fair, at least compared to past toy fairs. It just seemed like a lot of companies really did not have a whole lot new to show us this year. I don't know if that's because the studios are kind of putting the clamp down on revealing product so ahead of movies or what have you. But again, it just didn't seem like there was as much new stuff as we generally have seen in the past. But there were definitely a few gems, and so I wanted to basically talk about those things. Now, overall, I think Marvel Legends kind of stole the show. They probably had the best reveals overall, and I'm maybe a little bit biased since it's one of my favorite lines, but definitely I thought Hasbro did a good job with the reveals for that line. Hasbro also had, a few cool reveals for their other brands as well. And I'm not going to focus that much on Marvel Legends. I did a dedicated video talking about all the new Marvel Legends that were revealed the other day. So again, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on those. Probably though, the figures that stood out the most to me were the Thing figure, even though I didn't actually get to see that one in hand, just the press image, but definitely that figure looks good. The Sauron figure, which is a Build-A-Figure, that one was looking good for the second wave of Deadpool figures. And then the new Magneto figure, which I really dig that outfit, the black and red outfit. So that one kind of stood out to me personally. Other things from Hasbro, so they announced the Power Rangers, so they didn't show any product for that, unfortunately, just because it's so, they're not going to be releasing product for Power Rangers until April of 2019. And in fact, Bandai is going to keep releasing stuff up until April of this year. So I don't know what Bandai is going to release, what they're going to get out, but, you can still expect to see Bandai product for the next few months at least. But Hasbro did basically say that, not only are they going to do the stuff for the kids, they are going to do more collector-oriented products. So I'm excited for the prospect of that. Now, personally, I'm not a huge Power Rangers fan. It's not like that's something I'm super excited about. But even still, I am definitely interested to see if we see something like 6-inch Marvel Legend-like Power Ranger figures. I think that would definitely be interesting. Even for somebody like me who's not a huge Power Ranger fan, I would definitely be interested in seeing a line like that. For Transformers, the coolest thing, for me at least, for Transformers was the Predaking. I think this thing looks really cool. It's on par quality-wise. I put it on par with like the Devastator combiner that they did a couple years ago. Other combiners that they've done in these lines I think aren't bad, but the Devastator was definitely a little bit nicer quality, definitely was bigger, and the Predaking definitely seems to kind of fit more in that line than with the normal combiners that they've been doing. So definitely stoked about that. And the funny thing is I actually never had the original Predaking or the Predacons back in the G1 days. At the time those toys came out, I had kind of started to move away from Transformers as a collector buying them as a kid, and so I actually never had those. My friend had them, so I did have my hands on them and stuff, and they were cool toys. They were bigger than the other combiners at the time and everything, and so they definitely were a cool toy. They really didn't have a huge presence in the G1 cartoon though. It was more my experience with the Predakings or Predacons was more comes from the comic books, the Marvel comics, as I recall. But definitely cool, and that was definitely the thing that stood out the most to me. Now, I know some of you Beast War fans were pretty excited about the Optimus Primal toy that they announced there. I personally am not a huge Beast Wars fan, especially the toys, but definitely it looked good, and if you are a Beast Wars fan, I think that's something to be excited about as well. On the Star Wars front, there was the big announcement with the HasLab and the crowdfunding for the Jabba's sail barge. I've got to be honest, while the toy looks like it's going to end up being very impressive, I personally am not that excited about it. I think they made a mistake, and not if they were going to take on something like this and not doing something like a Death Star or a section of a Death Star. I think that just gives more options to collectors to display their figures and stuff than a Jabba sail barge. And, you know, like I said, I think there's I feel like there's a missed opportunity there. It remains to be seen if Hasbro's actually going to get their 5,000 people to buy this thing at $500 a pop. For me personally, you know, I'm probably not going to get it unless I ended up getting it to review or something. But I don't have the space to display a toy of that size. I don't have that many Jabba figures. I mean, Jabba-based character figures to make it worth it. It does come with Jabba the Hutt, but for me personally, you know, like I said, it's just based on money, size, and things like that. I don't think I'm going to actually end up picking this up. Now, I do want to note that because I've had some of you ask, you know, about what's up with international fans who want to have this. Hasbro has said that if they get their initial 5,000 people here in the United States buying this thing, then they will definitely be looking at ways to also get it to international folks after that point. So basically they're waiting to see if they actually get enough people to be able to go forward with this thing, and then a good chance they're going to find a way to get it out to people who are essentially not here in the United States. And also, while I don't know this for sure, I suspect if you didn't buy it now with the crowdfunding thing, if they do get enough votes, they will probably continue to make it available, at least in some number, to people who want to buy it after that point. The downside in waiting is if you really want to get it, you know, if they don't get the 5,000 votes, or not votes, but purchases, then it's not going to go forward. So that's what you have to keep in mind if you're debating whether you should plop the money down now or wait and see what happens. Other Star Wars things probably that stood out to me, the Hoth Leia was probably the figure that stood out that I would be most excited for. And on one side, I like the figure, look good, and it's a figure that I would definitely like to have. The downside is that it makes me want to have a Bespin Han Solo figure even more, which is a figure I've been wanting Hasbro to make since the 6-inch Black Series line started. So it's just like, in one way it's a cool figure, and another way it's like, still no Bespin Han Solo. Now I've got Bespin Luke and I've got Hoth Leia, but still no Bespin Han Solo, and that definitely sucks in my opinion. Switching gears to other companies, so Mattel, again, I'm not going to focus a whole lot on DC Multiverse. I did a video dedicated to talking about what was revealed there. Honestly, there's some okay looking stuff there, but I would have liked to seen the next wave. Some of you have asked, is Mattel canceling the regular Multiverse figures after this Rebirth Lex Luthor? I honestly don't know. One of the things that annoys me about Mattel is Mattel basically has no marketing people available for this line, and really hasn't since Scott Nylick left the company, you know, and Matty Collector folded, you know. So getting answers to anybody, I mean, basically the people at Toy Fair were just people with clipboards, PR people with clipboards, and if the information wasn't on their clipboard that they could just read off to you, they really didn't know anything. The Four Horsemen were there, you know, they sculpted most of the figures that were on display there, but they're not really, you know, involved with, you know, what figures are in what waves and things like that. And even if they knew, like, you know, I'm sure they would know if they've sculpted other figures that we haven't seen yet, but they are contractors for Mattel, and so they can't really tell us anything, even if they know it could get them in trouble with Mattel. So, you know, it's really disappointing that Mattel doesn't do a better job of communicating these things. They did at least clearly mark the figures that were on there, so we knew what was an exclusive to wear and things like that. So at least they did some prep work this year in that regard. But it would be nice if they, you know, had somebody on hand who actually was knowledgeable about the line and we could ask questions and things like that. But unfortunately, it's just not how Mattel has been operating in recent years. Other thing, the wrestling figure. So there was one wrestling figure that stood out to me. Actually, there was two. So there was the modern Triple H figure with the bald look and everything. That figure actually looked really good. I was really impressed with how that figure looked. And then there was a set with Kurt Angle, and he's shooting the milk out and from the milk truck. I was watching wrestling during the time that this happened. I think it was on Raw, and Stone Cold and Stephanie McMahon and Kurt Angle is in this back when he had hair, shooting him with the hose with the milk and stuff. So that's actually a very cool set that I was impressed with. I'm not a big wrestling figure collector personally, but those were figures that kind of stood out to me. The Jurassic Park stuff, I thought it looked decent. I think it actually looks better than the stuff Hasbro gave us. So in that regard, again, I'm not a huge dinosaur collector. I honestly don't get the appeal of Jurassic Park toys that much. You've seen one dinosaur, you've seen them all, is kind of my feeling. I understand, those of you who are huge fans, it's kind of like superheroes. I mean, you could say the same thing about superheroes. You've seen one, you've seen them all. So it's just, for me personally, the dinosaur thing just doesn't do a whole lot. But I did think that those toys actually looked halfway decent, and some stuff there that collectors could actually get into, not just the kitty stuff, which I'm actually kind of surprised. I really wasn't expecting Mattel to do a whole lot in the way of stuff that might appeal to collectors. So if you're a Jurassic Park fan, then I think you've got some stuff that you might be excited about there. Okay, now switching gears to smaller companies. So let's start with DC Collectibles. A lot of you have been asking me, are we going to see such and such? Did they have such and such? I think some of you have heard about, how there were some toys that were shown that we weren't allowed to talk about or show. And all I can say to that is I will answer two questions to that I've been asked multiple times. So despite what might have leaked out or not leaked out earlier in the week last week, there was absolutely nothing on hand for Justice League animated figures from DC Collectibles. And when we asked them about it, we basically got the same kind of static answer that we've gotten before: anything's possible, yada, yada, yada. So while maybe what might have leaked out last week has me hopeful that we will be seeing some Justice League figures down the road at some point, there was nothing actually told to me at Toy Fair or shown to me at Toy Fair that would lead me to believe there is any more of a chance of Justice League figures than before Toy Fair. You know what I mean? So I just want to make, and same thing with Superman, the animated series, there was absolutely nothing there. Now, Batman animated series figures, you might have a few things to be excited about. Again, I really can't say anything more than that, but it might have some potential there. But really, DC Collectibles didn't have a whole lot more new. We'd pretty much seen everything last week with their essentials. They had the two new essentials that they revealed, the Brainiac and the Black Manta figures, and then they had they announced the changing of the Superman figure, which originally they had shown us last year, a rebirth Superman, but now that Superman's back in his red trunks, they are switching gears and going to give us that version, the Action Comics 1000 version. And so the figure they had on hand was actually, it was a last minute change, so it wasn't even completed, because some of you had noticed that he still had the little lines around his sleeves like the Rebirth and New 52 costumes had. That will change. Those will be removed, and it will be to the likeness of the actual original costume with the red trunks and everything. And those of you who have been asking, the Rebirth Superman is not going to be released now, because again, they're going forward with the most modern look, which is actually the classic look of Superman in the red trunks. The Essential lines is going to cost $25. That's pretty much all information that we've known for a while. And again, the other figures that they had there, we'd seen since San Diego last year. They're up for solicitation, so nothing really new and exciting to announce on that front. DC TV series figures, again, that's another one many of you keep asking. Unfortunately, I don't really have very good news. Not to say it's canceled or anything, but again, like with the Justice League animated series figures, their answer is there's nothing in the works currently, but definitely down the road we could see something more. So again, unfortunately, I wish I had better news. My feeling is we're not going to see any DC TV series figures from DC Collectibles in 2018. We might start seeing something in 2018, and that's kind of DC Collectibles in general. I think DC Collectibles, and these are some things that I've heard, which again, unfortunately, I can't really go into detail, but there's some things that play that I think are beyond DC Collectibles' control. And so I know a lot of fans want to condemn them, but there's a lot of red tape and politics and things at play, and so which has caused them to basically have to take a reset and kind of reevaluate how they're doing things and what they're doing. And I think that's what's caused this gap. I know heard a lot of you say DC Collectibles should change their names to DC Statues, and definitely this weekend there was more emphasis on statue products. than action figures. And like many of you, I think a lot of those statues look incredible. They had a Joker bust that just looks amazing. Definitely has a hefty price tag as well, but I personally am just not a huge statue collector, so I understand the frustration there. But I don't think it's a permanent thing. I think it's just a temporary thing, while they kind of reset themselves and then kind of reboot and restart. And so I think we're going to see that kind of year gap this year as they do that. So I am hopeful that many of these lines will pick back up in some shape or form, like in 2019 or something, DC TV, the animated series stuff, all that stuff. But right now, Essentials, I think, is pretty much going to be primarily it, action figure wise, from DC Collectibles in 2018. So we'll just have to wait and see what they have in store beyond that. Mezco had a number of new 112 collective figures. John Wick, I don't know what is up with John Wick. John Wick seems to be the new Deadpool this year. Everybody seems to be doing a John Wick figure all of a sudden. I know he's got another movie coming out, and there's also a TV series in the work, but I got to be honest with you, and I liked the first John Wick movie. The second one I thought was okay, but not nearly as good as the first. We'll wait and see how the third one does. But overall, John Wick to me is just not that exciting of a character for action figure form. I mean, maybe if you're a huge Keanu Reeves fan, but to me it's just maybe I could see maybe one, two, but it's like multiple companies are doing it. So Mezco's doing a 112 collective John Wick figure. Diamond Select Toys is going to be doing a figure. That was one where we're not allowed to show you, but they will be doing a figure. And then one other company, I believe they kind of hinted at it, is going to be doing a 112, or not 112, but 1/6 scale figure, a 12-inch figure for John Wick. So, like I said, John Wick seems to be the new Deadpool all of a sudden, and I don't know what's up with that. But if you are a John Wick fan or a Keanu Reeves fan, then you've got some cool things to look forward to. But Mezco, anyway, the coolest thing that Mezco had actually was not 112 collective or even superhero related. It was this big ass, I think it was 18-inch, somewhere along those lines, King Kong figure. And I'm not even like a huge monster collector. I'm not into like all the Godzilla figures and all that stuff. But this thing was impressive looking. And so if you are into that kind of thing, into the monsters and everything, this King Kong figure, I think you're definitely going to want to check out. I'm not sure if there's a good Godzilla figure in that scale that you can put up against it. But if there is, definitely, I think, this figure is perfect for a Kong versus Godzilla battle, and looks really good. Now, they did have some cool 112 for like Marvel. They had Cable. They had a Blade figure, which to me looked like Wesley Snipes, but I don't think it's supposed to be based on the comic. It's not actually supposed to be based on Wesley Snipes. They had Netflix Punisher and Daredevil Season 1. Just naming these off the top of my head. There's one more, but the Jim Lee style type Cyclops. So that one was another one that they had. So kind of cool on that front. Spider-Man Homecoming in the homemade suit. We had already seen that last week, or actually 2 weeks ago, but they had that one on hand as well. DC, not as much on the DC front that off the top of my head. Basically, they still have figures that they showed last year, like the Dark Side, which continues to look very impressive. I definitely think I'm going to have to pick that one up, the Dark Side with the light up red eyes and everything. That one was looking good. And they got like Justice League movie figures. They basically have the entire team for the Justice League movie coming. So that was pretty cool. Some Batman figures. Toy Fair exclusive that they were giving out to folks. I didn't actually personally get one. Shartimus have it because he's going to review it. I don't like that head sculpt. I know it's kind of reminiscent of the original Batman's look, but I just don't like that head sculpt, so I wasn't that hard up on it. But we looked on eBay, and that thing was selling for $5,000. And I don't know if those are real bids, but are you freaking crazy? That figure, I'm sorry, is not. I don't care. It's a Toy Fair exclusive. That basically same figure is going to be released at regular retail. So a little thing on the box that says Toy Fair does not make it worth $5,000. So I just want to throw that out there, that I think you're crazy if you're paying that much money for a figure like that. I don't care if it was one of a kind, because it's not, again, it's not really one of a kind. Just because you throw something on the packaging, a sticker or something that says Toy Fair, doesn't make it one of a kind. So, you know, and in fact, I think it probably has less accessories than the regular release version is. So, you know, it's a nice gesture when a company gives the media figures like that. But don't lose your head trying to get one and paying some outrageous price like $5,000. And it was just one auction, and like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe there's some shenanigans going on there, because I just find it hard to believe somebody's going to pay that much money for it. But if you want my recommendation, just don't. Okay, so other companies. So Storm Collectibles actually had some very impressive things on display. The Goro figure from Mortal Kombat, that thing looks incredible. I haven't been getting all the Mortal Kombat figures, but that one I think I will definitely have to check out. And then also, I've already talked about this in previous videos, but the Injustice video game, which I do think I called it Injustice 2, because that's the modern game, but I actually think these are based on the first Injustice game. At least that's, I haven't played that game. I only played it like once or twice, and so I can't remember if these are designs from the first game or the second game. On the card, on the figure, it just says Injustice, so I'm thinking it's probably Injustice 1. But it's Lobo. We're getting a Lobo figure and a Darkseid figure, and I'm definitely interested to see how these turn out. These are unpainted prototypes, so it's a little hard to say here, but... And then also, what are they going to do with this line in the future? They obviously have the DC Injustice video game license, so it'll be interesting to see how many characters they crank out for that. So NECA toys. So NECA had some cool Predator and stuff. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that, but one thing I did want to touch upon is the DC figures that they showed last year, the 2-packs with the Alien and the Predator, and the Superman, the Batman, and the Armored Batman. And I talked to Randy Falk about these, and Shartimus is going to be doing a walkthrough video where he also talks about this in the video, which I don't think is up yet, but will probably be up in the next day or so. And basically he's basically has run it. The hold up with these is red tape. It's not that they don't want to put them out. It's not that, they're doing it. In fact, they've spent all the money to make these figures happen. So if they don't come out, NECA is basically going to be taking a decent sized loss. So they're doing everything they can to get these figures out. But unfortunately, because you've got multiple companies at play here with the licenses, you've got Mattel, you've got Warner Brothers, which owns DC Comics, you've got Dark Horse, which owns the Dark Horse comics that these characters are based on. You've got 20th Century Fox, who's got the Predator and the Aliens. So you've got all these different corporations involved with these licenses, and unfortunately one of them threw a snag into things and caused some problems, which is why these have been held up. But Randy is convinced that he is going to find a way to get these released at some point. It may be a convention exclusive. In fact, just talking with him, my feeling is that's probably how these are going to end up getting released. If that is the case, they are going to do everything they can to make these available in some number to folks online who can't attend the convention. And I even asked him, will there be enough so they don't sell out instantly? And he, definitely indicated that he's, doing everything he can. So, in keeping in mind, these were created to be, regular general release. So hopefully that means they will have more made than your normal, limited edition exclusive. So things to keep in mind. But if, and I want to stress this because this I find is annoying and makes the collecting community in general just look bad. I understand the frustration if it ends up being a convention exclusive and you can't get your hands on it. I understand the frustration there, believe me, I do. But don't take your anger out on NECA or Randy because you weren't able to get it. They're not lying to you. They're not trying to pull a fast one on you. These are, if you've ever worked in the corporate world, this kind of crap happens all the time. Red tape, somebody tells you something and then they go back on it. It's just stuff that you have to deal with in the real world. And, sometimes crap happens. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. So you know, like I said, just know that they're doing everything they can to try and get those figures out to you guys. And if it ends up being something like a convention exclusive, like I said, I understand the frustration. I understand the fear that you're not going to be able to get it online because it's going to sell out really quick. We see it all the time with like their turtle figures and stuff. But, you know, great to be upset, great to be mad, but just, you know that if you direct that anger towards NECA or Randy Falk, it's not really being directed to the right place. And again, it just kind of looks bad. And things like I saw this play out on Twitter where somebody was mad that because Randy had originally announced that they were going to show new Godzilla figures at Toy Fair, and then something happened where the studio basically nixed that, and so they weren't able to show them. And somebody started going off on Randy, you know, basically saying he was a liar because he had bothered to communicate with the fans that he was going to try and have these out, and then wasn't able to. Just to sit there and start going off on Randy and accusing him of lying because something like that happened, it's just ridiculous. You look like a fool, and like I said, it just makes us all look like the message you're sending is, in the future, we should just not communicate with you guys at all because this is what happens. You guys then start basically taking your anger out on us, and, you know, something changes, which things change all the time in this industry. It is just a given that, you know, that's why like things like release dates and stuff, I'm always hesitant. You guys are, when's that going to come out? When's that going to come out? You know, I try and give you general release dates, but, you know, these things change all the time. So, you know, you got to take these things with a somewhat grain of salt and understand that, you know, a lot of times these things, you know, happen beyond people's control. So I'm done with the rant on that, but just know that, you know, these guys are not out to screw you. They're not trying to get you. They're not trying to gouge you. It's just that these things happen. NECA also had on hand their Pennywise figure from Stephen King's It, which looked pretty good. And then another company doing Pennywise is QMX, and they're doing a 12-inch scale figure, which also looked pretty good. And then one other mention, going back to Diamond Select Toys, they finally showed off their new Ghostbusters Select 7-inch scale real Ghostbuster figures. I mentioned this the other day, but they're doing the 4 Ghostbusters in basically their cartoon outfits. So if you're a fan of that show, that's something you're probably pretty excited about. Kotobukiya, they announced that they're going to be doing G.I. Joe Bushido. I know I butchered that. I always mispronounce the title of that line, but that's the female statues that they do, and they're going to be doing G.I. Joe, so we can expect the likes of Scarlet, Lady J, Baroness, and CoverGirl. I'm interested to see that. They didn't have any on display. They just announced that they've got the license and that they're doing that. But definitely that was kind of interesting news. And if you're a G.I. Joe fan, I think you'll definitely be interested in seeing what they do with that. Okay, so that pretty much wraps it up for my thoughts. Those were pretty much the main things that stuck out to me. Now, I'll probably, as soon as I quit filming, will think of something, oh, that, yeah, I should have talked about that. But those were definitely really the main things that kind of stuck out to me at this year's Toy Fair. And we still have a bit more coverage coming up on the sites. We still have video interviews and stuff to post. Shartimus and Pixel Dan as well have been cranking stuff out, and we've probably got, I think, a few more image galleries to put up on the sites as well on TNI. Like Marvel stuff, you know, no more Marvel Legend news, no more DC Multiverse news, nothing, no more significant news reveals or anything, but we do have some more image galleries to show you of stuff to put up, and we've been putting up a ton of images, so if you haven't been over the sites in a while, you might want to head over and check them out just to see what's new over there. Links in the video description below to all the coverage, and also, you know, like the video, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you were most impressed with at Toy Fair. You know, please leave a comment down in the comments section, and until next time, guys, I will catch you later.